I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Emily.
Welcome back to our ChangeMaker chats, where we talk about the highs and lows of everything it means to be someone who wants to change the world.
Part of why we're inviting guests into the ChangeMaker chats is we are wanting to highlight the people who are making those changes in their communities. So Emily was our first choice as her work is centered on coffee and connection. So this just seemed like the perfect fit.
To get us started, Emily, why don't you open us up with a conversation card and tell us a little bit about what it is?
Perfect. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here. So Asulon Collective is all about catering coffee and conversation to foster deeper connection. And so one thing I do at my events, I have a coffee cart that pops up for private events, and I'll serve coffee and then I'll serve a conversation card, and they all have unique questions on them. What was the best thing that happened to you this week?
This weekend got to go to the beach with my husband. It was freezing and windy and we didn't actually go to the beach.
Nice.
But while we were over there, we saw some friends, and then we got to go travel down south to Orlando to see some friends that we haven't seen since we left Nevada. So that was really fun.
So for some context, my husband is an officer in the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps has brought us to the middle of nowhere, California. So we live in the very remote Mojave Desert. And the best thing that's happened to me this week is I have joined a very competitive kickball spouse league. So I am getting to make new friends and also compete against not friends, but they're friends. We're all friends. It's great.
Totally.
But truly, like, it has been so much fun. My husband wants me to stop buying kickball equipment, but I just can't because now I am fully committed.
That's great.
What about you, Emily?
This is just something fun that I loved getting to do this week, which was create a new drink recipe. So I've been like brainstorming, transition from like winter to spring, and it's not official out yet and named, but it involves roses, which is so fun.
Okay, so we can't get the secret insider, but we do know it's roses, so that's a big deal.
Here first. New drink coming. So yes, I worked with a local like spice shop and went in and we collaborated a little bit, and so I got to come home and just like get in the kitchen and like figure out, how do I want to do this? So I tasted it. It was super good. So I'm excited about that.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
So just, I guess, really to start, who are you and who is your organization?
Yeah, so I am originally a Florida girl. I grew up on a 125-acre hay farm, which we were just reminiscing about. But it really, I feel like, made me into who I am, as well as my family. Growing up in that environment really just instilled a lot of great values. So a big part of my story, moved to Nashville 7 years ago last month, and I have fallen in love with Tennessee. I love it so much. And I've had a lot of professionally, I've had different roles, but mainly in the like program and event management field. So a lot of hospitality experience. But one common thread through every season of my life has been coffee and connecting with people over coffee. I have loved doing meetups or brainstorming or homework when I was in college in coffee shops. I think they're great places to bring people together. Right out of college, I worked at a nonprofit coffee shop in Florida in the Panhandle, and had a lot of experience there of how to run a nonprofit and how to tie coffee into that. And so once I came up to Nashville, I've been in different roles, like I said, but I guess it was beginning of 2020 that a lot of this started to resurface in me. And it was so strong that I was like, I can't ignore this, and I need to really like pay attention to this. And so I took a lot of time to just honestly pray and think about these things. And by the end of January of 2020, it kind of felt like something that I couldn't ignore, to the point where I had to try and at least see what would happen. It was super kind of scary to like dive back into it. And I feel like I'm finding sometimes taking those first steps are some of the hardest. But that launched me on the journey of 2020 had a lot of curveballs for all of us. And so I took a lot of time that year to get back into coffee, talk to local business owners to try to learn from their experience, just receive vision and take some time. And then by August of 2021, I launched Asulon Collective, which I have a lot of vision for, but right now is catering coffee and conversation to foster deeper connection. And so I have a coffee cart that pops up around town when hired for events. And it is a side business currently, but there's constantly moving parts. And so yeah, excited to see what the journey has. And Asulon means refuge in Greek. So the whole overarching purpose is to really just be a place of refuge. And then as you experience that, extending it to others. So coffee is just a great way to cultivate connection and community. So
really appreciate you telling us about your story a little bit. I heard you mention that taking those first steps for any entrepreneur, nonprofit, anything is probably the hardest. Is you have this big dream and now what? I mean, you felt like it was a strong enough pull to where you couldn't ignore it. So what was the first step for you, and what would you recommend for someone who's in the same boat of having a dream?
I had to recently answer the question if it was an easy journey or not. I think it's yes and no. And I think one of the reasons is because I wasn't expecting how much internal work is involved with dreaming big. I think in order to be a good leader, you really have to have a lot of personal self-awareness and be willing to do the hard work, because everything that's on the inside of you is going to come outside of you at some point. And so I think for me, one of the big things in the beginning is wrestling with fears. I think you have to be willing to go on a journey that is unknown, has a lot of risk. I think you have to figure out what's worth it for you. For me, I would always wonder. So it was worth it to try to take a step and see what the next step would be. Yeah. I will say, I think that sometimes when we think about dreaming really big or having a vision, it can get really overwhelming really fast, because it's like, well, how am I going to do this? And when is this going to happen? But I found if you just take the next right step, it often leads into the next one, into the next one. And before you know it, this whole process and journey has unfolded. But it takes a lot of courage to be willing to succumb to the process. So, but it's worth it. And having, a small group of people you trust around you is really everything to have that support.
Yeah. That's good. And I love the next right thing. My shameless plug, I always would plug Emily P. Freeman, her podcast, The Next Right Thing. I think it's so fantastic for all kinds of discernment, reflection. She has, through some spirit guiding, has really changed a lot in my life on being able to kind of sit in that moment and just not get so overwhelmed by what's going to happen in 10 years, but what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen tonight. Yeah. So I love her. So Emily P. Freeman, The Next Right Thing podcast, 10 minutes a week, change your life.
Yes. So each time we talk to the organizations that we work with, we want to know what their why is. Our other shameless plug is a Simon Sinek Start With Why. We really believe that if you kind of get stuck, walking back to why you do what you do in the deepest way possible is probably one of the most foundational things that you can do. So really, we want to know, why do you do what you do? Why do you wake up in the morning? Why do you show up to these events?
What do you believe about the community that you're serving? What do you believe about coffee? So really getting deep into the foundational beliefs of your why.
I think figuring out the why is important, because it does drive everything you do. And it also becomes a filter for you to make better decisions. I'm in that right now. I kind of started 2020 with, this is where I'm going, and things are changing and evolving and pivoting, right? And so having potential opportunities and looking at, does this match with my why, and what continues to bring me back to that vision? So to answer your question, I think cultivating connection is very important. Sometimes when we go through things in life that are painful, those pain points can drive us and fuel our purpose. And so I think walking through different seasons of either loneliness or feeling disconnected, coffee just continues to be such a great way to to have a conversation with people and break down barriers. Anybody can go grab a cup of coffee together. And so that is really this concept of refuge and being a safe place. And it doesn't always mean that you're going to agree on everything, but finding common ground with people to be able to come together over coffee and sit down and just share your heart, share your life. There's a lot of components to it. But those are some of the first things that come to my mind of why I do what I do. I think success right now looks like being at the right place at the right time to connect with the right person. It could be one conversation I have at an event that would make the whole thing worth it. So I think it's just finding ways, to incorporate your why into what you're doing and then continuing to come back to it, because it really does drive everything.
Yeah. And I love the imagery and how relevant it is to coffee and connection. And you can't pour from an empty cup. So truly filling your cup so you can fill the next cup. And so I love how that just fits so seamlessly within Asulon and just the purpose of the work that you're doing. So one of the things too with Epic, we really want to create a safe space for people to just bring their wildest, craziest dreams without a place of judgment. But our part is to help them untangle from those dreams. Give it some legs, give it some structure. But we want to be a safe sounding board for people to just come with their wild self and their untamed self. And so one of the things we really want to do in these conversations is we want to ask each change maker to dream as wildly as possible. So this is if money and time were no object, there's no promise or pressure to make this dream happen. But what is your wildest dream for Asulon?
What a question. I feel like, man, I'm also continuing to challenge myself to dream bigger because it can be hard. So I'm very much in that space still. One thing with a big vision is also finding ways to hold it loosely and that it can evolve and change. And so one thing that I've said since the beginning is I would love to have a physical location to kind of be a hub for people. But that's one thing that I'm holding loosely because things are rapidly evolving in our society right now that I think there will be creative solutions to do things. And so I'm really open to that. But a huge dream is to be a for-profit for nonprofits in the community. I think there are so many awesome organizations that are already doing great things, and finding ways to come alongside them and partner and collaborate. And so that could look like employing people from different local nonprofits that have, restoration programs or, areas in our community that we can really find ways to like link arms together. That would be a dream to be able to do something like that, because I think that connects back to my why, and it connects back to, the whole concept of collaboration and community and how important it is. And so I could say having a physical location and, having a coffee shop, but I think it's so much bigger than that. And I'm really still trying to tap into what that looks like. And I've found as I'm taking steps, these really big pieces of vision or dreams that I've had are actually happening in unexpected ways at events now. But I think the other thing, if we're just constantly looking to what's the big dream, we'll miss what's happening now. And I think that I've found that there are things about the vision that I've received from the early stages of, dreaming big on Asulon is that they're actually happening now, and they're really sacred moments that many other people may not notice or see, but they're things that I'm noticing and I'm seeing. And so that really excites me, because it tells me that as I continue to take steps on this journey, that it's going to continue to come to life in maybe ways that I didn't anticipate. And the ultimate dream may or may not look like what I originally thought, but it will be better because it will be where I'm supposed to be. So
and I think too, we speak with people all the time too. Are you more attached to your services or your solutions than you are people you are providing the services and solutions to? You can dream as wild as you want, and we need to have those dreams to propel us forward. But let's stay adaptable, and let's continue to meet folks where they are, and not make them meet me where I end up.
Well, we've gone really deep, so I kind of want to bring it up a little bit before we finish out. Emily, tell us, what is your favorite coffee drink that you make?
So yeah, I definitely love all types of coffee. One of my favorite creations that I've done is called the Asulon. So it's the Asulon special, and it's half brown sugar, half vanilla, homemade. And then I sprinkle cinnamon and nutmeg on top. So it feels like a hug in a mug. It was a great kind of transition into fall, but I'm finding people have loved it so much that I think it's just going to stay with me.
I mean, it sounds like a signature drink. It is what it is. I mean,
man, I need to make my way over to Franklin, it sounds like. Well, Emily, thank you so much for being so transparent, so vulnerable, and just sharing your heart with the rest of us. We're really excited. We're hoping to have conversations like this every month, and just really sit down and dig deep with change makers like Emily.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored. And seriously, I had a conversation with you and Epic early on, and it was very helpful. So I definitely encourage anybody who is maybe on this journey and needs a safe sounding board, definitely reach out, because they have definitely helped me in my process. So cheers.
thank you, Emily.
Goodbye, cheers.